So big welcome to everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. This is the 5th of our founder event series. It's actually the last one for now, and to be honest, the most exciting topic and lineup so far. We're going to talk about a real acquisition, and we have both sides of the table here. And yeah, it's not just any acquisition, I have to say. Today with us, we have Adrian McDermott. He's the CTO of Zendesk. I assume most of you know Zendesk, a global player in the customer experience space. And as the CTO, Adrian is responsible for M&A, so he has seen and led multiple acquisitions. And on the other side of the table, we have Sarah Al-Hussaini. She's co-founder of Ultimate AI. It is or was a Berlin, Helsinki-based startup founded in 2017 and building an AI automation solution for customer support and customer experience. And by the way, they're sitting in the same room today, not that you're confused about that. And Zendesk acquired Ultimate more or less a year ago, so that now Ultimate is the AI agent solution of Zendesk. But before we dive in, I'd like to briefly introduce myself. My name is Jana. I'm co-founder of Beams, and together with Miri, who is also in this call. Beams, or usebeams.com, is a SaaS tool insights platform, which means that we generate deep tool usage insights to understand which tools are being used in a team, are they actually being used, or are there opportunities to reduce costs, ensure security and compliance, and tool adoption. And one interesting use case that is gaining traction for us is M&A and the due diligence process. So when companies acquire another company, they usually also look at the tool stack and which tools they're using. And as more founders and acquirers are using our platform, we want to host events like this one to help you be better prepared. And for the event today, I have prepared a few questions to guide the conversation, but feel free to ask in the chat. And Miri will monitor the chat, and I'll try to place the questions as I see fit. Okay, so today we're talking about what really happens when a company acquires another one. So we're talking about the deal itself, but also about the integration, some surprises maybe, and hopefully we also get some insights into what it's really like behind the scenes. So let's get started with brief intros. Adrian, maybe you can start a quick intro on yourself and your role at Zendesk.
So hi everyone, I'm Adrian, I'm the CTO of Zendesk. That's something I've done for the last 15 years. Zendesk is my third startup, 2 hits and a miss. Zendesk is one of the hits. And I started as like employee number 35, VP of engineering to run engineering and product. There were 10 engineers, 5,000 customers, no salespeople. And we grew from there. I think right now we're about 100,000 customers, 2,500 salespeople, 2,500 engineers, and 2 billion in revenue. So fun journey, 12 acquisitions along the way. Couple, I think 11 decent successes. 1, the jury's still out, and I think 1 failure.
All right. Jana, checking that we're recording because I didn't see the notification. Good. Then I'll roll. Hi, everyone. I am Sarah. I am one of the founders of Ultimate, as Jana mentioned. Ultimate is an automation platform for customer support. So literally it enables any brand to build an AI agent that works across all of their support channels. And basically, if you reach out to that business, let's say you reach out to Zalando's customer support, you have an issue, you'll speak to the AI agent first. It will try to solve your issue. 54% of the time, it will do it fully automated. Otherwise, you'll get passed over to a human agent who's going to have the AI work in the background to make their lives easier. That's the product. We founded it when I was 24 in 2017. And yeah, then we scaled it to about 200 people, with 100 of those being in Berlin. So that was our biggest hub. And then last year joined forces with Zendesk. And today I lead AI go-to-market at Zendesk. So we brought all the AI products together, and I'm responsible for how we scale those globally. So it's a really cool new chapter.
Super exciting. So cool to have you both in this call. Let's get started about how the deal came about. One of you, feel free to choose, can you walk us through the acquisition, starting with who initiated the conversation?
I think we initiated the conversation, in corporate development, fancy title for your M&A department. You generally monitor a bunch of spaces adjacent to your business or otherwise. And obviously the chat thought space was something we've been looking at for a long time. I think the degree of interest and imperativeness of the interest really changed at the moment ChatGPT was launched, and there was sort of that moment really affected us. And then we began pretty aggressively looking and went sort of semi-deep or had conversations with about 30 plus bot players in the space. And that's not unusual, right? I think one thing I found us to realize is when corporate development departments reach out for a conversation, it might just be a conversation, right? We constantly are trying to get smart about a space. It doesn't, you should, I feel like you should always take those meetings if you're not too busy and you're not selling and building, but you should kind of take those meetings and be open and honest and have that conversation, because they may come back and it may be interesting when they come back. But we had about 30 friends in the space and we talked to them, and then we got pretty serious and started working with the Ultimate team and a couple of other finalists and really went deep on those in terms of the shortlist. Ultimate were our top partner in EMEA, which made them just such a good fit as we had so many shared customers. What do you remember, Sarah?
Yeah, so from our perspective, basically what happened was we had this product and this team, and so we were in the space of AI for customer service. And then in December 2023, ChatGPT landed, and suddenly trust in AI just skyrocketed because everybody spent Christmas break playing around with this very, very cool technology. And so when we came back in January, January was a record-breaking month of pipeline. And sometimes January is weird, so we didn't think much of it. But then February beat January, March beat April, May was 150%. May was 150% of April, rather. And so it became the first time I'd ever seen a real hockey stick. And we went from a 50-50 inbound, outbound business to a 90% inbound business. It became fully about how quickly we could take those calls, get a customer on a call with an AE. If they're a qualified account, it became all about the tools that supported that speed to lead journey. And yes, we were growing very fast. And so it made sense, of course. Zendesk was our biggest partner. We had focused a lot on the Zendesk ecosystem. It was a perfect fit ecosystem in terms of the customer base. They were big enough to be exciting and interesting, global brands, but lean enough to not be these archaic enterprises, right? They were still using Zendesk, which is a modern, cool service tool. So at the time, 70% of our customers were with Zendesk, 70% of their revenue. And so when Zendesk reached out at the start of the summer that year and said, hey, AI is hot, and we're considering building this in-house or buying it. Yeah, you just realized.
I did not say AI.
No, okay, no, they're very cool at Zendesk. They just call you up. They're like, yo, no. So they basically, I'm totally summarizing, but they basically said that they were considering building or buying because they knew this space wanted to be a space that they wanted to own, right? Not just work with partners on, but own. And really they thought this was going to be part of the future of the service industry. So at the time, from my perspective, if they decided to build it in-house, that was not going to be a big threat because it takes time for a big enterprise to innovate. But if they decided to buy someone, from our perspective, we were like, ooh, they better buy us because we were really invested in this ecosystem. So we spent the summer talking to them. And then as Adrian said, things got serious after the summer. In September, they made the full decision to buy, and then they had a short list. And then it was a lot of much deeper conversations, both technical, go-to-market, etc., for the evaluation.
So all in all, how long was that process?
The evaluation starts at the start of the summer. By September, they made the decision to buy. So that's a decision to acquire, but no decision, but a short list, so no decision on who. I would say by October, November, we were told that we were like the first choice, let's say, and we signed a LOI on the 12th of December. Yeah. I was in Bangkok when my co-founder signed the LOI. He WhatsApped me. I flew back and started the DD process. And the DD took 3 months, and we officially closed in March the following year.
And Adrian, would you say is that a typical timeline?
I think it was perhaps a little bit longer. There's complexity always if Zendesk or if the acquirer isn't operating in the same countries that you're operating in, and where you're registered as legal entities, right? And so I believe Ultimate was sort of German-Finnish as an entity set, and there's some complexity on the law there. So we've done deals much quicker in North America, for example, or Canada. And so this was on the longer side. But it's on the longer side because of the complexity of diligence. And, you have to write contracts to every single employee, right, when you do this. And so that can be a fraught and complicated process.
Okay. And Adrian, when it comes to evaluating potential acquisitions, like what do you typically look at, what matters most, and then why was Ultimate the most convincing?
I think, it's important, I think, as an acquirer to understand what you are primarily a buyer of, right? Could be customers, could be time, could be team, could be technology. It's usually all of those, but, you weight and balance those things differently. So you have to look at all of the things. We had built a bot actually internally at Zendesk, and it's fairly simple, and we have 10,000 customers using it, And so what we wanted to build was the advanced upgrade. What we wanted to buy was the advanced upgraded version, and then kind of merge the technology stacks together over time. And we have a little bit of experience on this. That means working together really closely. And that means having sort of an aligned philosophy on how to treat customers, what customers we're looking for, and an aligned philosophy on development culture. And so there was a lot of debate internally about, are these the people that we want to spend a lot of time with for the next few years? And are they going to be in it to win it, right? Sometimes that founders will probably help you out with the integration, but then are going to exit the building and be founders again, right? Because they're only founders, right? Sarah's been a banker, right? Sarah's worked in larger organizations and smaller organizations, and you look at the profiles of people in that way and kind of figure out what they're going to do. And so for this one, it was technology, speed of innovation was really important. We could see that they were building fast and getting things out quickly, and in that AI moment that we're probably all still in. That's a key characteristic. You don't have to be as right if you are fast, right? And I think we wanted some of that DNA in the Zendesk building, really. We desperately needed some of that and that velocity. And then what really honestly sealed the deal for us was just the wonderful go-to-market that they had. It wasn't scaled. The N of customer was hundreds, not thousands. But what was great was each one was well implemented and churn was low. We really focused on, I can't emphasize enough how important churn is. We'll call every churned customer. We'll call every employee that left too, by the way, or a fair number of them. And looking into the details of how customers got deployed and how adopted they are and how much value they're getting out of it. I think when we looked at that, we saw that, the Ultimate team had built they had some kind of seasoned people who built a really mature methodology, both in part for sales, but the sales to adoption flow was really strong and really added value for the customer. And honestly, we wanted that. That is a thing that we really, really wanted and we're willing to pay for. Sarah built that, so you should be proud.
Thanks.
Sarah, back to you. You mentioned how Adrian reached out. At the time, were you talking to other potential acquirers, or were there any other paths you considered going forward?
No, honestly, we were the classic VC-backed company, and like I said, we were finally experiencing really accelerated growth, like hockey stick growth. So we had initially planned to raise a Series B that year, and it would have been great valuation and that whole journey. That said, we'd never really thought about an exit. We were young founders, first-time founders. I think we were really focused on building at the time. But if we had thought about an exit, we'd always thought that Zendesk would be the perfect acquirer. Like I said, it was a business that we had focused a lot on. We knew this business inside out. Zendesk is also culturally a Nordic company in the same way that we were founded in Helsinki. Zendesk was founded in Copenhagen. So we had a really similar culture. We were really embedded with their teams. We'd had some quick wins early in our journey as a startup by targeting hiring Zendesk salespeople, because we found that they were really good at selling into Zendesk customers. So we had like these elements of overlap. Zendesk was one of our customers. They used our bot for their own support. So as well as being a partner, they were a customer, they were a channel, and they were a key relationship also within our employee base. So it really was a perfect fit. But honestly, at the time, we weren't focused on that. We were focused on growth and kind of celebrating that.
Yeah, I find this super interesting because you said you weren't really looking for it. It was a successful path anyways, but on the same time, it was always the perfect fit. So I can also imagine it must have been a bit of an emotional journey for you, and up and down, going through this process. But when were you sure we're gonna do this acquisition? It's the right step.
No, I mean, there wasn't really. It was more that they, like I said, my co-founder Ratu and I, we turned to each other and we were like, look, we've never been in a stronger position as a business in terms of to fundraise. So we weren't looking to be acquired, but we were both like, if they acquire someone, it needs to be us, because we were so deep in this ecosystem. We knew it so well, and our product was so good there. So it was a threat, an existential threat if they had gone somewhere else. So we played, from our perspective, we played this really interesting game of, we weren't driving it. We weren't, running, following up or creating the process in any way. Zendesk had an established M&A process. This was not their first rodeo. However, every engagement that we did have with Zendesk, whether it's to come to present our roadmap or to talk about the go-to-market motion, we were very committed to always putting our best foot forward. It was very important to us that our biggest partner thought that we were good.
So, I think that's not unusual, right? Which is, on the other side of the table, there's a moment where you see that the founders or the team around them are emotionally invested in the deal. And I feel like that's the fish on the hook moment, right? Where you can tell that people are now they're really hoping that this happens, or they're almost banking on this happening, and it will be an enormous letdown if it doesn't. That's certainly true. Like for the team running a deal, there's always a deal lead, right, on the corporate development team. And if you're the deal lead and your deal doesn't go through, it's crushing. So like, you've invested all this time in it, you've grown to really be connected to these people, you've spent hours on the phone with them, going over the minutiae of every contract they've ever signed, and then if you pull out, or one party pulls out, or you can't agree on something, it's devastating. And so I think one of the things you do during a deal, and you feel it happening slowly, it's the Hemingway thing. It's like bankruptcy, change happens slowly and then all at once. And you sort of slowly kind of have all these meetings, but then you realize you're like, okay, now everyone wants this deal to happen, and it's sort of not kind of as us and them anymore. It's now we're all in it. And then what we try and do, there's sort of it's often described as the higher power negotiating tactic, where you're like, you got to help me help the board, get the board over the line. Because you want another million, or you want this, you want to change the terms, or blah, blah. It's like, you got to help me get the board over the line here, Sarah. This is got to do, right? And that's kind of, these are the dynamics that usually play out in these deals as you take it forward.
Honestly, there's also this really nice moment after the decision is made. So there were two decisions I mentioned. One, the decision to acquire, right? That was a moment where we realized, okay, this is very serious. This isn't just conversation. Then there was a second moment where it was the flirtation with you're our first choice. And that's a really cool moment for the startup, because that's when the acquirer is direct, says you're the first choice, and then you start spending a different kind of quality time together. It isn't just evaluatory, but it's really almost starting the integration process, starting the relationship building between the founders and the executives like Adrian, already starting to think about a joint roadmap together, already starting to have that shared, ideate together on a shared vision. And that's, earlier when you asked about motion, that's when you get emotionally invested. That phase where you're really designing a little bit, it's early, but a little bit designing a future together.
And I think one of the key things about that discovery, or there's two key things, right? One is if a huge thing for us when we're dealing with a company is that they're totally honest about everything. And I say that because so many times people obfuscate, or they're not just economical with the truth. They actually obfuscate the truth, or they sort of misdirect you in terms of numbers. And bear in mind, Zendesk is privately equity owned, right? So I work for people who evaluate 200 companies a year, and who, the due diligence thing, it's a well-known skill about how you do it. So everything is going to come out. And so uncovering a rock and not liking what you see is a really bad feeling, and that's a walk away moment sometimes. And so Ultimate was always extraordinarily direct and open, and I think those are the best deals. And the second moment that I think is really important, not going into too many details, is price discovery, right? Where you have to kind of have a dance. And Sarah and I had this awkward dance where I wined and dined her, and we went out to my favorite sushi restaurant in San Francisco. I think I spent I think it was we spent $600 US that night, and we went to a speakeasy as well.
It was so much fun.
It was super fun. And it was an important bonding moment in some ways in the deal, but it was also a time where I could see that, they felt they were on trajectory A, and we felt they were in place B. And we were going to have to come together and have that moment, right? And you need to be in comfortable differential price discovery territory to be able to do that. There's the anchor and the response, and then you go from anchor and response, right? And you don't want to be too far apart. And maybe we had mismatched expectations, and it took a little while to get over that hump. But I think it's important to be able to move on that way. And Sarah makes another great point, by the way, about the poker element to this. Is there was a short list of 3 companies. Those other 2 founder teams, they were sad panda. You call them the day before, the day you're going to announce, and you let them know that you're closing another deal tomorrow, or that day. And it's really, that's not a great call. Let's just put it that way. That's not a good moment. And you don't want to, if you're in a small ecosystem, you don't want to be getting that call. It's a tough call to get. It's not a great call to make either with someone who has been a partner that you're close to.
Yeah, I can totally imagine. And thanks for sharing the sushi moment as well. We're already nearing the end of the session, so I want to give at least one question more to the integration part, like post-acquisition. Sarah, you mentioned the shared vision between Zendesk and Ultimate, and this is also one of the audience questions. Is Ultimate's original vision still alive? How does it fit into Zendesk? And maybe with that, you can talk a bit about integrating, merging the product, but also the team.
Yeah, so Ultimate is very much alive. The entire team, the entire product, everything was taken as is. It was a very successful acquisition for the team as well. So how it works is we're brought in and we stay as ourselves. So the team has not been kind of dispersed. It stays as Ultimate because it is the specialist team for AI agents. This is the team that knows how to build this product. And this product is not done. This product is something that's innovating very, very quickly in the AI space. new models are released all the time, new capabilities, everything's agentic now. There's a lot of pace. So I think part of why Zendesk wanted to acquire externally is not to get a static product that they think is great at the moment, but it's to get a vision as well that they believe in, like founders that they believe can continue. Adrian talks about founders that are going to stay because the space is moving. I think it's extremely important that people have that vision and can take it forward because it needs to continue to move. So what happened is Zendesk actually resourced us. It's almost like being funded. So we grew our engineering team. We grew our sales and success orgs to be able to have that global coverage. That needed to happen quickly because most of our customers were European and North American. Suddenly we were global, LATAM, APAC, languages, Australia, New Zealand. And then piece by piece, we began training the core business, the core Zendesk, on different elements of the product. This is most critical for go-to-market. So teaching the 900 salespeople how to talk about AI agents, how to sell it, how to price it, how to position it, how to versus competitors. Teaching the services organization how to implement this, what success looks like. And as this phase goes on, the integration, goes on and on and on. But Ultimate still exists as kind of the center of knowledge on this and where the development happens and where all of the innovation happens.
And so for the team itself, the change wasn't that big, I understand, or what would you say?
So it depends on your role. For the product and development team, not crazy. They continue to develop their vision that they understand, continue to work in the squads that they're in, but of course there are additional resources.
I would add that we decided that Sarah's co-founder was just had the best vision for a lot of the actual existing technology we were building. So the entire knowledge team, which was basically our Copenhagen team, the original Zendesk team, moved over and now works under Retu. So we actually moved a lot of Zendesk under the which Sarah is also now the head of kind of AI sales for a bunch of different assets that we built inside of Zendesk that we moved into the Ultimate family. So I think it's like this one is a reverse takeover. Tiny company takes over 6,000 person company.
Super interesting, yeah.
We called it that internally. We were like, we're going to take it over. So that's been fun. But I think for certain roles, it is a bit different in the sense of like sales and success, they now have counterparts. So while before, of course, if you were Ultimate, you were the only salesperson on an account because it was within your territory or it was your relationship. Now you collaborate with a core salesperson that also owns that account for Zendesk's core products. So we have greater collaboration, greater kind of stakeholder management, and we are the specialist org that needs to support a very big business on the go-to-market side.
All right, we like to keep the session short and crisp so that it fits into everyone's calendar. 30 minutes, unfortunately, are already over. I feel like we could have talked for so much longer. But thank you so much, both of you, Adrian and Sarah, for really fun stories, thoughtful insights. Rare to hear from both sides of the table, and also cool to hear that about the reverse integration. I think I haven't heard about this before. Thank you everyone for joining. We'll follow up with the summary with the recording and also contact details. Have a great rest of the day, everyone, and talk to you soon.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.